I had every fear, rejection, the unknown, you name it. I was feeling it. And I remember when the lady answered, she looked at me and all my fears went up. And then I started talking and she looked at me and listened and then they went back down. And I was like, okay, this is just a conversation.
And what's interesting is a lot of times that those momentum appointments that I set, or I recommend guys set that are struggling, those are the ones that close,
Yeah. I think a lot of people who are older getting into the door-to-door space will have a ton of success.
All right, guys, welcome to this edition of Behind the Knock podcast. We have Isaiah Fawson here.
Good morning.
Now, Isaiah is an amazing young man. He is a part of the executive leadership, ownership of Proficient Windows. So this podcast will be getting to know Isaiah, kind of what makes him tick, what he's about, and what he's doing with Proficient Windows. So,
awesome.
How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic.
That's awesome.
Well, hey, thanks for driving all the way up here just to get on a podcast.
Of course, man.
I flew all the way here, so, but yeah, so we're doing the podcast, obviously, we're doing the first set of episodes now. A big part of it, there's a lot of reasons why, obviously, we're doing the podcast, getting the name out there, whether it's customers, whether it's recruiting, whether it's training. There's a lot of things that this podcast is going to serve us for. So in setting up the podcast, we definitely want to get to know the key players that are within the organization. So in comes Isaiah.
Yeah, here I am.
So yeah, man. So I'd just like to understand a little bit about your general background, kind of a little bit about your upbringing, just to get to know you a little bit, and
Absolutely.
Then we'll kind of transition a little bit more professional stuff.
Yeah. Growing up, I grew up in Salt Lake. I was fortunately raised by my grandparents, my brother and I. Growing up, we played a ton of sports. We were always, if it wasn't baseball, basketball, soccer, it was football. So,
and your brother Elijah is a year older than you?
It's like 16 months.
16 months.
Yeah,
Nice.
so we're super close.
It was a grade higher?
2 grades.
2 grades. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I always
Yeah.
assumed it was 1.
I was one of the old heads in my class.
Oh,
I was
nice.
like the oldest dude in my grade.
So what month's your birthday?
December.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was in, I think they called it Head Start back then, like your first 8 year of school. I did that for 2 years because I was slow.
Gotcha.
So I stayed in that an additional year. Growing up, we had a lot of positive pressure to just get out there and do stuff. Complacency was never something that we were allowed to be. Like if, it was a Saturday morning and we weren't up by like 8 a.m., we were told to get up.
Yeah. And now was it just like both your grandparents or one specifically?
Both of them.
They were both. Okay.
Yeah. They taught us right, man. They old school, just super old school to the point, just this way or the highway. It instilled a lot of really good, I'd say, morals and ethics into me, and that I feel translated directly into sports. Growing up from a young age, I wanted to play basketball. My biggest dream was making it to the NBA. Obviously, I'm way too short.
Yeah. And you're not a short guy, but you're definitely too short.
Yeah, way too short. I didn't really have the knack for it, kind of burnt out. High school, I got into football, and that's where I really started learning about myself. I went to Jordan High School. We had a decent football program. We would be typically playing the big schools in the state. So was
it 4A or what was the
5A?
5A, nice.
Yeah. And then they brought in 6A, which
I didn't even know they had that.
Yeah, they probably have 7A now.
Yeah, like 10A now.
Yeah. But yeah, playing football, I started playing when I was in middle school, and I was heavy. I was a big kid, so I was playing on the line. And I was, just dealing with dudes twice my size every day. And I didn't want to be a lineman anymore. So
was it offense or defense or both?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, I was playing on both sides of the ball.
Yeah,
so
that's where they started me as a little chunky kid.
Yeah, dude.
Offense, defense.
I feel like you learn a lot, though.
Yeah.
Getting tossed around like that. But I didn't want to be big anymore. So that summer, or that in between the season, I lost like 40 pounds.
Really?
going into high school.
Was it like intentional? Like you were dieting and stuff?
Yeah, we had a treadmill in my grandma's office, and every night after school, I'd run on it for an hour. And I was eating super clean because I didn't want to be on the line in high school, and got to that point. My freshman year, I played inside linebacker. I was on the sophomore team. But that year, I decided to take it all way more serious, and I went from being on the sophomore team to starting varsity the next year.
As a junior?
As a sophomore.
Oh, as a sophomore.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I was starting varsity as a sophomore, was a captain, everything all the way through my senior year.
At
Jordan.
Inside middle linebacker?
Yeah, played
Nice.
middle. From there, went to college, played at SUU for a few years. I'd say that football
Was it 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years.
2 seasons?
2 seasons.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of things changed at that program, so it didn't really make a ton of sense for me to stick around. But I'd say fundamentally, a lot of the beliefs and, like I said, ethics I have stem from sports and, the way that I was raised. But, dude, my family, they've been phenomenal. They've only encouraged me and my brother and our cousins to get out of our box, get out of our comfort zone, make a name for ourselves. And that's my mission, man. Like I
know your name, bud. You're doing it.
Yeah, I'm doing the best I can, and it's not done yet.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. So thanks for sharing that. And, I think sports, they really go a long way with how people operate as a professional. And I think especially with something like sales because of the discipline. Discipline's everything with something like this. Obviously mindset as well. And what better place to learn that than team sports?
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Okay. So now fast forwarding a little bit. So we got an understanding of what I guess pre-professional Isaiah looks like. Sounded like you got pretty serious about football there for a while.
Yeah.
Now, I guess coming into the real world, adulthood, kind of take me through that a little bit.
That's when it all changed, man. Being in college, being on a scholarship, you feel like you're doing something. But leaving that and then getting into the real world, it was really eye-opening. I immediately went into like blue-collar construction work. I was working for my father-in-law doing window coverings. So installing draperies, shades, stuff like that. That was challenging too. I had never really worked in that realm before. So I had to learn a lot. 12-hour days, 5 days a week in the cold. We would be up in Park City all the time doing work up there. So y'all were on like ladders and stuff. I'd imagine there'd be some pretty big curtains and things window coverings to put up in Park City. Yeah, we would be on fully extended extension ladders, doing exterior shades. Actually, one of the coolest jobs I did was at Michael Jordan's old house.
Oh, really?
In Park City, yeah. It was a repair job I was on, and kind of a random story, but yeah, I worked on Michael Jordan's house.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. From there, so up here I was doing window coverings, and then my wife, this was when she was getting out of school and getting into design. She got an opportunity down in St. George to work at a design firm. So packed up our bags, moved down to St. George, and I got into woodworking. And I was building cabinetry. I did a few other things down there for a little while, health coaching, things like that. Wasn't really for me.
No.
So I got into woodworking. I thought it was cool. I like, working with my hands. So I gave that a shot. That was a fun experience. Cool guys.
What type of woodwork was it?
Cabinetry.
Okay.
So I would build face frames and like floating shelves and things like that for homes. Did that for a few months.
Like under TVs and stuff.
Oh, yeah. So on the wall.
Like nice, like kind
on
of.
the TV. Yeah, those.
Like half a log sticking out of the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Real cool. I did that for a few months, and then I essentially opened my mind. I didn't really look for a new job. I just started having the idea that this isn't, what I'm meant to do. I want to do more. And I saw a podcast one night about this kid who had made like $20,000 in a month selling windows. I was like, $20K in a month. So I started looking into it more. And the next day I was on Indeed and I saw the same job listing. It's like, I'm going to give it a shot. And I had my interview. I had a ton of anxiety. I didn't think I'd be picked. I didn't feel qualified for anything. So I had my interview. The person who interviewed me.
So you were like, I hope I get it. I get it.
My fingers were crossed.
Nice.
I didn't think I got it. The person who interviewed me did a really good job at positioning themselves. So
I'd imagine so.
Yeah. And the day they said they'd call me, they didn't. So I was at work and I'm standing there like, okay, they're not calling me. So I called him and he answered and he said, yeah, come in like tomorrow or next week. So I quit. I told my employer at the time, like, sorry, man, I got to go a different way. I'm going to pursue this opportunity. And then that's when it started. It's about 2 years ago.
Nice. Yeah. It's interesting. I was actually building some cabinets before I started Windows too.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I had started my own business, installing like TVs and cameras and things like this, but also I was doing part-time cabinets. So for the most part, I was just painting them, so doing the whole wrist action, you know. But yeah, that's what I was doing too. It was cabinets right before Windows.
Yeah, I feel like you learn a lot doing cabinets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like or just anything I think that requires like a finishing touch to it, like that's the finished product. You got to make sure there's an attention to detail with
Absolutely.
it, well, cool. So yeah, that's funny. I didn't know that you kind of had like this kind of anxiety towards it. And, that's awesome though, that you actually, made the effort to call, took the initiative, because that goes a long way. I'd imagine that they were going to offer you anyway, but if someone's like proactive, like that would show me a lot. I'd be like,
Yeah, he cares. That's what it matters.
Yeah. So yeah, dude, that's awesome. This says a lot about someone when it's just like when they're faced with things like that. How do they operate? Do they just throw their hands up in the air and woe is me, or do they take some action and like make something happen in this world?
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to move the needle.
Yeah. And so that was a really pivotal time for me because I tend to call it blissful dissatisfaction. I got that from Ed Milet. Just, you're content with life, but you're just not happy with where you are yet. And that was the point in my life where I was really starting to understand that what I wanted was so much more than I had. And I knew that taking the risk, like without risk, there's no reward. And starting, I didn't have the best support getting into sales in Windows because it's just commission only. And I would say almost everybody in my family doubted me, told me not to do it. And I proved all of them wrong. So
nice. Even so much that your brother Elijah, you got him into the industry as well.
Yeah, I did.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic when it comes to joining an opportunity like this. Is not everyone's going to understand it, and they're gonna project whatever it is they think about it onto it without ever understanding it at all.
Yeah,
and I've mentioned it a lot. I'm not even sure if we had said this on another podcast recently, but something that I really admire about the door-to-door space is it's something that's across the board with all the industries within the door-to-door space. You get these guys that are top tier, guys and gals. Attached to that is a ton of personal development. Like they are dialed in individuals, and for them, everything it takes to put that together and execute things like they are, that is it's impressive. It's super impressive. And to be exposed to people like that, it just allows you to see that, there's layers and levels to the way people operate. And,
that's true.
there's obviously different industries and different things people can be a part of, but my experience, with being in the door-to-door space, it's just, I think what it is, it's like kind of a juxtaposition of what people kind of think of the space and what it actually is for the people that are consistently, doing it. It's they think it's like this, and there are whatever, there's some slime balls out there, but it's like this negative connotation to it, to where, it's like these people, it's not a real job or whatever it is, but it's actually these people that like take their lives way more serious than almost anybody you're ever going to meet.
Yeah.
And they got a 5-year plan and they're going to retire.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I agree. There is preconceived notion to door-to-door sales. I agree. It sucks. It's sad because there are tons of people out there that would absolutely crush it in door-to-door, but just because they have some preconceived notion, they would never do it. Yeah.
And that's something Drake and I spoke about on a previous podcast, is that there's just so many people that don't even, they don't even allow themselves the openness or opportunity to see what it's about, And I would implore people to, be open to it. And especially something like Windows, it's not like we're giving them something that they don't already have. How many people have you knocked on their door and they're like, we were just talking about Windows this morning, or like yesterday? Like, it's a thing.
It is a thing.
It's a thing.
Absolutely.
So it's a thing. It has a lot of value to it because, what other product that's offered through door to door that actually makes the person's home more comfortable? Not only does it make the home more comfortable, it saves money on energy. Yeah. On top of that, there's an aesthetic to it. Yeah. On top of that, noise mitigation. There are so many positive benefits from it that you don't necessarily need to be feel like you're this smooth talking, extrovert to be able to get into something like this. There's a need for it. Yeah. And once you see what the product is, the quality of the product, all the backing, the install, the warranties, everything that's involved with it, it's something you can really get behind.
Absolutely.
And I think that's probably why, just in my unique experience, seeing so many blue collar guys do well with this, I think it's just because it's something that they can have some belief in. It's not like this arbitrary, we're going to put these solar panels on your roof sort of thing. Yeah. It's more like it's really straightforward. It's like, hey, windows in, home more comfortable. Yeah. Good. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, I would implore people to be more open to what it could look like, just door-to-door industry in general. Yeah. But, there are some specific niches within the industry that, even maybe if you didn't do so well within like maybe solar or pest control or something, there's been plenty of examples of people that didn't do so well with those, but are actually like golden door winners within the window space. Yeah. At least I think there is. I could be wrong, but yeah, so with that being said, now when you got into, I guess, how did you come across the podcast? Were you like actively looking for things like that, or is it just a random thing? Or
no, so it was pretty random. Most of my feed is podcasts. Mm-hmm. Funny enough, I was just scrolling through podcasts one day and I saw it, heard about it.
Gotcha. So part of that's like, you kind of get tuned into opportunities, right? Like you started opening your mind, right? So it's like luck is preparation meeting opportunity. So, you start opening your mind to it, then it starts showing up on your algorithm. Next thing you know, it's like just kind of leads into it. Yeah. So that's cool. That's an important aspect of attracting things and attracting opportunities and understanding that like luck is not really that. There's an aspect of luck, but there's no luck with consistency, Yeah. So, okay. So now when you got into it, did you have any other fears other than just, am I going to get this job or not?
Yeah. From like when I started, I had the fear on if I was ever going to get a sale. Mm-hmm. I didn't know if I ever would. And how it all cracked out is pretty funny. So my first week when I got done training, I was mentored for like 2 days. Mm-hmm. And then that next week we had a company trip where we all left, and I was just thrown out into the wild. And I remember that first day. I remember the first door I knocked and just how nervous I was. I've never been an extroverted person. I've never been the kind of person that can walk into a room and just start a conversation. So I was completely out of my element. I had every fear, rejection, the unknown, you name it. I was feeling it. And I remember when the lady answered, she looked at me and all my fears went up, and then I started talking, and she looked at me and listened, and then they went back down. And I was like, okay, this is just a conversation.
Yeah.
I'm hyping this up way too much. And that week, I had set like 19 appointments.
Yeah.
And I think only 4 of them closed. So my set to close ratio was pretty bad. And rather than, patting myself on the back with the accolades and rewards I won that week, the only thing I could think about was the fact I set so many appointments and only 4 of them closed.
Really?
Yeah. So moving forward, the biggest
That's
thing...
awesome, because I remember giving you those awards.
Yeah. The biggest thing for me from there was learning how to qualify. And that, to this day, is still like the fundamental, one of the biggest things I train people with. Yeah.
And from my personal experience, that's one of the biggest things that I learned as a coordinator was the qualification. It's easy to set appointments. Like, it's super easy.
Yeah.
But is it qualified appointment? Like, you can just fudge them through. But like, in my take on what I'll do is recommend coordinators sometime, like, set momentum appointments, because they can almost get to the point where they're just looking for the perfect appointment, the perfect laydown. And it's just like, you can't eat off of that.
Yeah.
So, and momentum's a big thing. So a lot of times what I'll have guys do, or what I'll do personally, is if it's I always qualify it. Like, it's not just shit, but it'll be like maybe like a super tentative sort of way that I said it.
Yeah.
But it's to go through the motions, to get the juices flowing, do everything in the app, go through the stuff, exchange the information. Now it's like, okay, I've done it. Now let's do it again. And it's just a momentum thing.
Keeping your processes refined.
Exactly. So it allows me to just, go into the next one with like momentum and just basically flow through it. And what's interesting is a lot of times that those momentum appointments that I set, or I recommend guys set that are struggling, those are the ones that close,
Yeah.
So, it's an aspect of just kind of understanding there's like a spectrum of things. And the more you understand all the spectrum of different things and the tools you can have in your belt, then you can start kind of leveraging these different ways that you make money. Because, some guys have a super strong follow-up game, just whatever it is. It just kind of depends on like the strategies you use. But the more of them you have and the more you understand the nuance behind it. And I think that's one of the hardest thing to teach people is nuance.
It takes time to understand that.
Yeah, it takes time to understand nuance, and not everyone's going to understand it the same. But that's definitely a unique thing. So I'll stop talking so much.
Oh, you're good, man.
Yeah, we want to make this about Isaiah.
No, you're good. One of the things I was going to say, kind of talking about sales and Windows sales compared to other industries. Windows sales is so simple, man. Like, as a coordinator, the amount of money you can make just by having a 5-minute conversation with somebody is insane. And there's no coercion, there's no smoke and mirrors behind what you're doing. You're just telling them the facts, seeing if they're open to the idea, and you get buku bucks, man.
Yeah.
So it's, for me, like, why I continue to choose this industry is, for one, the people in this organization. You guys are phenomenal, and the impact you have on people is insane, dude. Like, you've done a lot for a lot of people, and I see that, and a lot of people other than me see that too, and that's why I'm here. But as far as Windows go, I understand the product, and I have confidence in our product. Like, my conviction in it is just so high, and it's pretty easy for someone to come into an organization like ours and develop that because of the people you're around and because of just how good the product is, man.
Yeah.
Like the windows sell themselves.
Yeah, they sell themselves. So if you have like a good culture to be a part of, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's Drake and I were talking about it yesterday, but it's like, you know, Windows can seem like it's too good to be true, but it's not.
Yeah.
And it's not for everyone. It's not going to work out for everyone. But for those individuals that give it a shot and the ones that it works out for, I mean, I've seen people become millionaires. This is my 6th year in the business. And I mean, I've seen guys, the original team that I started on, and like guys closing deals for me when I started as a coordinator. These guys have generated over $250 million.
That's insane.
Since that time with their business, you know.
Good for them.
So, and that's just, you know, that's probably like the most extreme example, but, you know, those are guys that are owners that have done really well, but just people that have worked in the industry that aren't owners. Like I've seen millionaires be created over and over again at this point, you know, and we're still scratching the surface of the industry. It's very much in its infancy. The particular kind of strategy that more or less is used by all these branch of companies that we're all networked with, that's been around since the late 90s. So there's been companies that have been around a good while doing it. Now, not everyone's going to do it the same. Obviously, not everyone's going to execute it as well.
Yeah.
So that's where it really comes down to where it's important to have like really good people in your organization, really good structure, culture, training, all of these things.
Yep.
Right. So, and that's a big part of, like, 'cause we have huge goals as an organization. And as thankful as I am to have you and Drake be a part of it, we're not going to be able to do it all just us, you know.
Yep.
We got a great team of guys behind us as well. You know, other leaders as well coming up. But again, for us to get to where we need to, what we have in the organization right now, we're going to need a lot more and some really high level people.
Absolutely.
You know, ideally some people better than us.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
That would be good.
That'd be good. But yeah, so, you know, it's great to kind of get an understanding of like, okay, why you have conviction with Windows, you know. Then obviously money is good as well.
Yeah.
Now, something that has been a topic of conversation is spousal support. So kind of take me through what it looked like, I guess, like your wife's interpretation of you joining joining the industry, and, you know, kind of walk me through that. Yeah.
So 2 years ago, when I first started in the industry, I remember vividly when I had my first day of training, and I went home with my papers and how you get paid and all that stuff, and I was showing it to her, and she was like, "No, it's not. Nothing's guaranteed. Nothing's promised. Like what's promised here?" And like reading through the paper, like all excited about it because my trainer was phenomenal. I was so hyped up for it, and I was like, "Yeah, that's a good point. Nothing." And
so you're like up here, and all of a sudden you're like,
yeah, it brought me down. Yeah. So, I mean, at first there was a lot of doubts. But just seeing how much that's changed is insane, man. Like it went from uncertainty. Is this legit? Is this a real thing? Is this a real office, et cetera, to holy cow, you made that much money this month.
Mm-hmm.
So it changed quite a bit.
Yeah, changed quick.
Yeah, to now, like, dude, she's my rock. Like, she's my why. She's why I do it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out Kennedy.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's awesome, man. And my experience is, I would say, unique in that I haven't had really anyone question me on joining this industry. It may be because I was later in life. I mean, I was 33 years old the first time I actually knocked a door. Yeah. So, you know, I already had 3 kids. So I was definitely already like into manhood, into it, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was never like something that I would say I got any negative energy from, or if anything, it was the only real person I got any negative energy from. He's one of my best friends growing up to this day, where he's one of my very best friends. And actually my business partner when I was installing the TVs and cameras and things. And so, and he was also, so we were installing the cameras and TVs and stuff, and I got him a job installing the cabinets with me too.
Okay.
So we were doing that stuff. We were like partners. And then I started, entertaining the window thing, and then I went into it. And I remember telling the guy who owned the cabinet company, I was like, yeah, well, I'm going to be this marketing director for this company, and I'm going to like make hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. It's going to be awesome. And so the dude was like, okay, cool. Yeah. Awesome. And he's telling my guy, so I'm not there anymore, but my friend, he's still working for him. And he's like, yeah, Jared was telling me he got this awesome job. He's like this marketing director and stuff. He's like, he's knocking doors and just like completely dismiss it, And then there was another time where fast forward like 3 years, and I had done really well with Windows, had recruited a good number of people to do really well with Windows as well. And I was at a lunch with him, and we're at lunch, and it was after one of our, it might have even been the event that you had your first trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might have been around that time. So we were eating lunch, and I was just kind of talking about like, this guy made this, or, just kind of conversating about it. And the waiter overhears it. He's like, what do you do? And then he's like, before I even have a chance, he's like, they knock doors. And it's
Just
like,
downplays it.
yeah. And I'm like, dude, that's such a disservice to that guy. Like the way that you just dismissed this opportunity, didn't even allow me to get a word in edgewise, and just completely, and I tried to like rebound it and talk to the guy and stuff, like, afterwards, and even like get his number and everything. But like, the vibes were
gone.
Yeah. I wasn't able to kind of work the psychology on it. So, that would be, I would say the only one is like, just like my best friend. And he's seen obviously me do well, but he just kind of has this like negative idea about it, or just the way that he views it.
Yeah.
But also I think it's maybe changed a little bit, because he has actually been more or less like open himself to potentially doing it. It's just like, it's never worked out with like his, family situation. He's got a wife and kids and stuff, and, they kind of have their own thing going on.
Yeah.
And the way that especially that time worked, it was very much a travel thing, and that just wasn't in the cards ever for him. So, but yeah, really that's like the most negative thing I ever felt, was just my friend.
Yeah.
But no family, nothing like that.
Yeah. Doubt is one of those things, I feel like for me, when someone doubts me, I just, okay, now I'm just going to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
Like, so just to kind of go a different route with that, being 33, starting door to door, I think a lot of people who are older getting into the door-to-door space will have a ton of success. When you're knocking, if you're a little bit more mature, people tend to respect you a little bit more out there and listen.
Yeah, can you maintain eye contact and hold a conversation and not sound like a robot with your hands all shoved in your pockets at the door?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's definitely something I've noticed in this industry is, there's a lot of mature individuals that can come into it. You've seen it. Yeah. People in their 50s, maybe even 60s come into it and do super good.
We've got a guy in Mesa. He's a retired Marine. His birthday was just the other day. He's older, and he crushes it every single week out there on the doors and in appointments.
Mm-hmm.
And it just,
he's a beast.
Yeah, it just goes to show it really doesn't matter age, anything. Like, people come from different states, different walks of life, different backgrounds. It just matters if you're willing to put in what it takes.
Yeah. That's really what it is. Because like you said, it sells itself, but you got to be disciplined enough to put in the work.
Yeah.
And you got to have at least a good enough mindset to like have a reasonable attitude about stuff,
Yeah, you don't need to be like, gaslighting yourself every night to do it. You just have to be positive, and you'll have success.
Yeah. It's not, it's people, they they overcomplicate it, and it can be complicated, but at the same time, it's thinking it's complicated is what makes it complicated.
Yeah,
at the end of the day,
simple.
we're just trying to help some people get some Windows.
Yeah,
you know?
it's simple.
But yeah, so now as far as, so you get into it, obviously you proved everyone wrong. I was a part of that organization on your come up as well before I left.
I remember that.
Yeah. And so I was nothing but impressed the whole time. What impressed me so much was not only were the numbers so high, like to start, because you know, that's awesome to see, but there's also new hire fire. Like you see guys do well all the time to start.
Yeah.
But for you, it's like, okay, the next month goes by. The next month goes by. So there's this consistency behind these big months. And so that was what really started, you know, kind of separating you from the pack, if you will, in my viewpoint of view, was like the consistency behind the big numbers. Because anyone can go out there and go hard and, you know, put up a big month, but to do it month over month and have a big month and then like beat it the next month, and like it's just again, consistency is everything with this. So even if you don't have like super great months, if you're consistent and we can consistently get you a little bit better, like kind of have you on this upward trend, you know, that's amazing. But for someone to have consistency also with the high level, you know, again, that's a big part of the reason why you're part of this organization. A lot of things, you know, like a lot of people can do this industry. A lot of people can have success with it. But it's like, what, you know, where can you develop yourself? Like, where do you want to go with it? What type of character, what type of individual are you? Certain people are more serious about their lives than other ones. Certain people, you know, they just take it more serious. So you're a young guy, you take things really serious, and you've been able to have some good opportunities put in front of you because the way you've gone about your business, you know, and you see it from little things like, oh man, they haven't called me yet. Let me make a phone call. You know, just like these proactive things, there's a compounding effect to all of that.
I agree.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's gotten you to an amazing position in your life right now, but you know, it's like we're page one.
Yep.
Really.
Just getting started.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, the consistency, I agree. On a coordinator level and every level in sales, it's extremely important. And at that time, those months, I wasn't attached to the revenue I had. I was just attached to beating what I did the previous month and making the margin between myself and the person in second place as big as I could. And I'm just a pretty competitive person, and I love competition, man, because it just more reason to work, you know, and seeing the revenue every day on the chats and stuff like that would get me fired up, dude. And just the positive reinforcement from the team too. You get a set, people are shouting you out, you get a sale. It's like you just won the lottery, man.
Yeah. It's like a dopamine party.
Yeah. It's
like,
crazy. Yeah. And you just crave that.
Yeah.
After a certain amount of time, you don't necessarily get attached to how much money you're making or how big the sale is. It's just if it closed. Yeah. You get that rush from it.
Yeah. Drake and I spoke about that. It's like, you know, the money's kind of a byproduct of all of it, but it's really just like kind of the party of like, you know, celebrating and shouting out. And it's like, you know, just the green on the on the calendar.
It's favorite color, man.
Yeah. Well, cool. So now, I guess fast forwarding a little bit, when it comes to Proficient Windows, you've mentioned a little bit, you know, like some respect for some of the things that I've done for people in the industry, but you know, what would be some other things that you would say kind of drew you into the opportunity?
Dude, I don't even know where to start. So the people first and foremost, and the opportunity to develop. I think leadership is everything in an organization, and I think people only go as far as their leader. And I know that people outgrow their leadership, and it happens. And not all the time, but there are certain people that happens with. Yeah. And I feel
the law of the lid.
Yeah. And I feel with this opportunity, everyone's like-minded. We've got big goals, and there is ethics behind what we do and integrity. And that's a big word for me. And I know that's a big word for you. And in this company, it's integrity.
Yeah.
I don't feel like there's much of that in the world these days, man. And it's refreshing being around a business owner that wants to take this thing to the moon that has integrity.
Yeah.
And I see it, man. And our guys see it too. And that's what keeps me going.
Awesome, man. Well, and it's synergy, you know, when you get kind of people rowing in the same direction, same sort of, you know, more or less same beliefs when it comes to the integrity behind the stuff, kind of the work ethic, just like I don't know if we were recording or not, but what we were talking about earlier, when it's like, you know, it's doors, and it's knocking doors and it's selling windows, but it's so much more.
Yeah.
You know,
it really is.
But yeah, man. So with joining Proficient Windows, how long has it been now? 2 months?
I think January is when I came.
Oh yeah, January.
So what, 3 or 4?
3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's been your experience like so far?
I love it, man. It's fun. I would say my experience in Mesa, it's been really good because, you know, we've got all the right guys down there, and they're hungry to learn, and they're hungry to be trained more. They crave knowledge, and they just every day they want to sharpen their tools. And it's really fun because I feel like I'm challenged almost every morning in Jumpstart. I'm not the most knowledgeable person in sales, but I do a ton of research, and I'm just a student to the game. So I get asked questions oftentimes I don't quite understand how to answer yet. Mm-hmm. So it constantly challenges my way of thinking, which I think continues to propel me as a leader too.
Yeah, stretches you out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that's awesome about not only doing well in sales, but then also being in like leadership and doing training and things, because it really you have to stretch out.
Yeah.
You know, and something that I really loved about being in charge of a bunch of directors was it was like almost like we became a mastermind, to where it's like understanding, okay, I have my style, okay, understanding this kind of style, like, you know, and like I can like take a little something that like say this guy did or whatever. And so it was really cool just kind of, you know, building up my own, I guess, philosophy and doing well, but then also working with and training with guys and then just understanding their philosophies, you know, and then kind of cross-referencing and understanding like, you know, how they can connect, or, you know, things maybe you agree with but don't agree with. But yeah, so it's really cool understanding all the dynamics of what it looks like to, because, you know, it's pretty systematic. Like if you can get down to what it is we're doing, what it is we're saying, the gestures we make, the facial expressions. I mean, I'm pretty much doing the same stuff in every home. I'm just making it seem very natural and conversational, but it's the same stuff. Yeah.
Same dance. Yeah.
Same dance. And then I'm playing the same notes, and then they're dancing to it. You know,
you're just showing them what to dance to.
Yeah. So y'all have already been working on the Mesa team. You know, you got the next level of leadership up and coming there. Yep. I would say what's been, I guess something that's been cool for me to see you and Drake develop into is more or less the executive roles and the assistance you've been providing with like San Antonio. So, you know, if you could kind of give me some feedback on, like, you know, the experience going to San Antonio and kind of what it looks like spreading yourself out and not being just in charge of one thing.
Yeah, no, it's
because that's what the executive leadership starts looking like. You know, you got to spread out,
spread the wings.
You got to have better overall leadership, because it's way easier to manage people in a room. When you're halfway across the country, you're in another state, another city, whatever, it changes, and you got to be better to be able to have things go as smoothly as they do when you're in the room.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's a great question, man. Getting into the executive role has been challenging in all the right ways because it's stimulating me to grow, and it just challenges my way of thinking. And you're right. It's really easy to lead people in the same room, but when you're in a different state, it's a different game.
Yeah.
So I've learned a lot with how to talk to people, how to have a phone call with somebody. And then when you're with them in person, spending as much time with them as you can to develop that relationship. Dude, when we go to San Antonio, I'm out there on the doors all day with those guys. And I know that those relationships start out there in the trenches because, I could be kicking back at the office, but what good does that do?
Yep.
I need to be out there in the field with these guys because there's most of the training on the coordinator level is in the field. And if, you have a newer guy that might be burning leads or is doing things wrong that he might not be noticing, you need to have that reinforcement there to guide him.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the most proactive ways to move the needle is leadership in the field, training in the field. And it's the last thing that people want to do, as much as they want to be kind of an armchair or let me sit at the office and, just make phone calls and things.
Yeah.
Or get a real good role play and real good training today. But there's just nothing like actually being live in the field, live examples, and even just you as a high level trainer or whatever it is you're doing out there. I mean, you're learning too.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
every day.
I've spent a lot of time on doors, and I mean, there's almost never a time I spend any amount of time on the doors with the coordinators or anything. There's not some little aha thing or just one little thing that whether it's because it's not just okay, you knock on a door and you say a script. There's a lot of kind of strategy that you can put into things in terms of where you park in a neighborhood or whatever it is, what you do to be more efficient. There's a lot of efficiencies that you can put into place with this thing. And so it's just, even now as say an owner and a CEO of a successful company, it's I'll go knock with a guy and there's still little things. I'm a little aha, little make a phone call and at least share the idea, you know? So
yeah, the training, I think it's limitless, man. I think every level of a salesperson can be trained. And, we see it from the newest guy that comes in as a coordinator to our most developed directors. There's always room for development. And the training that we implement, I love because it's extremely hands-on and we're constantly doing it. And those are some of the things that I know a lot of salespeople don't have.
Oh yeah.
Is training in their own space. Because you can look up and find an online course for, $5,000 if you want to buy it. But having that personalized training to your field, tailored to exactly what you need to say and when you need to say it is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something I noticed because I had a couple guys work for us in San Antonio that had worked for other window companies that knock doors. And I think it was at least two other companies that I had guys, or two other guys that had worked for other companies that worked for me. And they got more training in an hour from me than months with these guys.
Yep.
And it's just, just asking them normal questions okay, well, what does your training look like? What does your script look like? Just whatever it is. And dude, the dude told me all about his truck for an hour and then just put me in the field and that was pretty much it. Oh. And then he's then when I wasn't doing good, he's no, you're good, bro. You got it. He's that was the training.
Yeah.
So I just had to go figure it out.
Yeah, that's not everyone can deal with that. Sink or swim. There definitely is people out there that can make it through, but I would say most people and in an unknown field, that doesn't work.
Yeah. No, you can definitely get lucky and land some people that can definitely swim, but it's our responsibility, as leaders and trainers is to provide people with the information that they need to be successful.
I agree.
And the more information that we provide for them to be successful, Obviously it's got to be the right information, but like it's an extreme ownership sort of thing. Yep. It's if they're not doing good, it's because I didn't provide them with what they needed to, do their job.
I agree.
So yeah, we've talked about past, present. Let's talk about the future.
Okay.
So what do you see for the future?
I see Proficient Windows being one of, if not the biggest, one of the biggest window companies in the country. We're going to be crushing it
in the universe.
Yeah,
okay.
in the universe. In the universe.
In the world, Craig. Just kidding.
Yeah. I know for a fact San Antonio, our market in Texas, it's going to be phenomenal, and same thing in Arizona. We just need to keep pushing our guys, and I don't have a doubt in my mind that 5-6 years from now, it's going to be completely different than what it is today. My biggest goal, dude, is I want, like this year, preferably by the summer, I want all of our offices doing at least $1 million a month.
Yeah.
And I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I think that's definitely reasonable. Now, we have the 2 offices, so we got some work to do to get there, but we're trending in the right direction.
Absolutely.
We're essentially hitting a record month every month, just because we're getting the momentum going. We've made the transition, getting everybody kind of rolled out on the software and just kind of how we do things or whatever it is. Obviously, we have a lot to do. We've hardly done anything, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all. It's all in due time, right? And that's part of even what this podcast is. It's like it's all part of the master plan, and not everything's going to happen now. And we need to have some patience with things, and just understanding. It's like there's so many things that just myself personally, I need to manage for the business. And it's like, you can't let anyone thing get too far back, So it's kind of like you're like herding these little cats and going this way and going that way.
Yeah.
But you can get too in the mix with that stuff to where you get like too working in the business instead of working on the business. And then you're not growing. You're not doing, definitely not. I didn't start a business so I could be like just crazy busy all day, every day. There's seasons for that. That's my season right now. But it's, again, like the big part of the reason why I started a business was the way that it looked like for the former company that I worked for. It was like the only way I could be relevant was just to work my ass off forever and in eternity.
Yeah.
And I know that I can put in really the same amount of effort, if I'm being honest, with my own business. But if I do it the right way, I can build it to where there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and I don't necessarily need to just grind my face off every day, because like life is short. I'm 38 now. I'm still young, but I'm not getting any younger, and I've dealt with some pretty serious health stuff. And I would like to get myself to a point to where it's like, I just feel good consistently. And a big part of that is not just dedicating so much of my time and effort into, it's great to build a business, everything. Like I'm super, I'm motivated, I'm inspired. I've never had so much energy to do something. But at the same time, again, I don't want to have a 14-hour, 12-hour, 10-hour, day to where I'm just, again, grinding my face off the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That's just not what I want to do. So, part of starting the business was I can build it and design it and have enough control over, the outcome of things to where there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Not only is it with just my time and efforts in the day to day, but then, once we eventually make the exit for the business, then it's I wouldn't say it's fuck you money, because people's interpretations of fuck you money, it's what is it, billions or whatever?
It's subjective.
I'm not planning on being a billionaire for Windows. I mean, it's possible, but that's not necessarily something that I want to put in that much time and effort.
Yeah.
We can put in the next 5 to 8 years, really build something special. There's equity involved with a lot of opportunities within the leadership of building out this business. Yep. And, you know, the goals are big enough to where a lot of people can come and, you know, have their goals fit within the goals of Proficient Windows.
I agree.
You know, you can come make a lot of money here. You can take that money, you can invest it. There's a lot of things that you can do. And you can ride off with us in the sunset and, you know, get into whatever sort of positions that do offer equity within the company. Mm-hmm. You know, we build this thing together and then we sail off into the sunset.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe that'd be a good segue to end the podcast, right? Oh. Sailing off into the sunset. So really appreciate you getting on, Isaiah. This is the first of many podcasts that you will be a part of. So I know that you've been on at least one before, right? How many podcasts have you been on?
I've been on one other podcast.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. So you did really good. Sounded really good. So
appreciate you.
Yeah. Appreciate you too. Impressive. So until next time, we really appreciate you guys. Tune in Behind the Knock podcast.